Greetings that are friendly, and welcome back to me doing whatever the hell I please on this channel. Tonight's topic is necromancy, the ancient art of manipulating the boundary between life and death. It is something I am very passionate about. I mean, it's in the name. I gave you all the clues, officer. And if I'm going to be one of the greatest necromancers of all time, I must learn from the greatest. So without further ado, these are my top 10 necromancers. But first, some ground rules for this little game. Number 1, no gods. If you're a god, that makes you a god and not a necromancer. I think we can all agree on that, right? 2, they must either return from death or bring others back from the dead. Or both. Extra credit for both. And number 3, no vampires. I don't even need to explain myself. Okay, let's go. Number 10, the Witch of Endor, from the Bible. Now, the Bible has a bunch of necromancy going on, and here's one of my favorite stories. So, strap in. Back in ye and old Bible times, there was a guy named Samuel. Samuel was cool because he had like a private chat with God, and God is like, hey, I need you to choose a new king for Israel. And Samuel goes, I know this guy named Saul. And God's like, okay. And so time marcheth forward, and Saul becomes the king of Israel, the very first king. Whoopee! Now, there are certain laws at the time. For one, that necromancy is banned. Apparently, there's a lot of necromancy-ing going on back in the day, and don't do that. That's bad. So Samuel, the cool guy, up and died, which sucks because he was cool. Actually, I don't know the guy. He could have been a fucking dork. Anyway, King Saul, he started falling on hard times, having a bit of a kerfuffle with the nearby Philistines. They amassed this huge army, and they were just totally wrecking Saul's. And so Saul tries to strike up a chat with God, and is like, hey God, are you there? It's Saul. And God just left him on read. So being ignored by God, which sucks, I know, King Saul, the desperate, dispatches his men saying, go find me a medium so we can raise the dead spirit of Samuel. So certainly he will tell me why God isn't responding to my texts. And as luck would have it, there was a witch in the nearby cave of Endor, which was able to do that. Huzzah! So King Saul puts on a cunning disguise and he goes to see the witch, and she's like, necromancy's outlawed. How do you know you aren't just gonna get me killed for doing this? And King Saul, I guess, he had his, faction-specific costume equipped. He's like, don't worry, I know the king, and it's all good. You'll face no consequences. And the Witch of Endor is like, cool, let's go raise the dead. And so off the ritual pit they go, and she successfully raises the spirit of Samuel. She does it. And he's looking kinda pissed. King Saul says, hey man, my kingdom's going to shit. Why is God ignoring me? And the spirit of Samuel is like, dude, God is mad at you for disobeying him, and to be honest, bringing me back from the dead is, it's bad. Get Shrek'd, loser. And then Samuel vanishes. And King Saul is all tired and sad, and the Witch of Endor responds by slicing the throat of a calf and using the blood to make some bread for the King Saul, and sends him on his merry way. And the witch lived happily ever after, and King Saul lost everything and died. The end. I'm gonna have to speed this up. Number 9, Lady Comstock, from BioShock Infinite. Now you may be saying, Lady Comstock, that's a weird choice, but I'm making the list, you hear me? You can't stop me. In this world of BioShock Infinite, it is a floating steampunk dream, filled with high action and deep philosophical messages and overt racism. Plus, you get to fight a George Washington robot with the Gatling gun, which really makes a lot of sense if you don't think about it too much. Lady Comstock was done real dirty by her husband and was basically martyred for a twisted cause. Now, time travel and alternate realities can make stuff convoluted really quick, but all you need to know is you need to break into Lady Comstock's crypt and chop off her hand to progress in the game. And I'm already sold. Where do I chop? With a dash of mad science, your companion turns into a light show of screams, and Lady Comstock returns from the dead as a siren, which is a fancy word for a ghost thing between the living and the dead. But she comes back from the corpse and turns into I don't know. She starts resurrecting spirits right out of the nearby graveyard, and it's up to you to shoot the ghosts to death with your bullet guns. Eventually, she chills out after getting some closure, and we can all look back on what has transpired and have a nice laugh. I'm sure I absorbed all the subtext and nuance this story had to offer. Oh, look, a birdie! I like Lady Comstock. I like her tragic story. I like her cool airship. I like the fact that she serves the very important role of progressing me to the end of the game. I don't really remember what happens at the end of BioShock Infinite, but I'm sure everyone turned out just fine. Number 8, Voldemort from the Harry Potters. Now, who wouldn't want to have the dashing looks and rakish charm of this absolute wet wipe? Look, I got no respect for Lord Voltmeter. He was like a dark wizard who seemed to have lost his nose in an ancient wizard duel or something, and he spends his time creeping around saying abracadabra wrong. Lord Moldy Butt is garbage. I don't even know why I put him on this list, rather than maybe as a cautionary tale about phylacteries. What's a phylactery? I hear you shriek. What, you filthy mudblood, didn't you go to wizarding school? Well, in magical terms, it's like an object that a sorcerer puts a chunk of their soul into. So if you lose your body by getting exploded or something, if the phylactery is intact, you can be brought back to life. Get it? Easy. So Lord Voldehorse had like 7 of these things, and he called them Horcruxes, and none of it mattered anyway, because his evil plans are a goddamn disgrace, and he positively sucked as a wizard. I mean, his evil origin story is that he failed at the very simple task of killing an infant, and even though he came back from the dead, he was also a headmaster's talking tumor, unless we forget that brief masterpiece of cinema, Fetus Mort. Anyway, no self-respecting necromancer or lich would create a phylactery as a means of cheating death. That's just silly. Okay, moving on. Imhotep, the Mummy. Number 7. Imhotep, the Mummy. Imhotep rocks. He's brought back from the dead using ancient Egyptian magic, which can basically mean anything now that I think about it. He's a necromancer who's got it all. He's got impossible wealth, he's got the good looks, he has control of living goons and undead soldiers, and all he wants to do is cram the spirit of his lost girlfriend into some unsuspecting woman whom happens to just bear a slight resemblance. It's a tale as old as time, really. What's that, Bob? They remade The Mummy? I never watched it. Number 6, Griffith from Berserk. If you've never read the manga or watched the shows, and I were to show you this picture and ask you, which of these 2 fellows would you say is the bad guy in the story? That was a trick question. Neither of them are good. On first glance, you may look at this angelic individual with his slender features and androgynous energy, and perhaps ponder to yourself, why is this swooshy-haired ladyboy on the top 10 necromancers list? Well, if I told you in this video, it would be banned. Because it is that messed up, what this person has done to acquire their powers. When I tell you there are some scary necromancers on this list, this guy genuinely makes me most uneasy to even think about the atrocities that he has committed. For instance, Griffith said screw it and started the eclipse where he raped and fucking mutilated his dearest companions as a sacrifice to the god hand, defiling everything sacred to him as the demons poured out and nearly broke all of fucking reality. I cannot recommend Berserk to everyone. It has such dark themes that I was not ready the first time I read it. What Griffith has done has haunted me long after I stopped reading. Also, Griffith came back into the world like nothing happened, and he was beloved by nearly everybody. He could summon spirits of the dead to give peace to their family. He was seen as a savior, but those who were closest to him knew that he was the embodiment of evil. And I'm certain we will never truly know the extent of his powers. I truly hate this character. I hate him, and I wish he would stop making me feel emotions. Ew. Number 5, Quan Chi from Mortal Kombat. Imagine having your soul enslaved by this goober. Quan Chi has really grown on me over time. Sure, Shang Tsung can do the old soul sucky, but Quan Chi really leans into the whole necromancer aesthetic. He's got a demon sorcerer lineage from the Nether Realm who fights by producing green glowing skulls and skeletons as weapons. I mean, why punch someone in the face when you can produce a glowing skeleton to headbutt them instead? Which is a question that really keeps me up at night. I mean, he can also create portals to other realms, which is really, to him, like no big deal. Why are you crying, Elizabeth? Just make a portal! Squanchy here also created the Wraith noob sailboat by corrupting Sub-Zero's brother, Bi-Han. Oh my god, guys, the lore, it's so deep, you guys, wow. For some reason, he's always reminded me of that guy from the band Disturbed, David Drano. I don't know why. Anyway, in Deadly Alliance, he has got that really awful fatality where he stretches the opponent's neck like a giraffe, and it's very awkward.
Fatality.
Number 4, Victor von Frankenstein from Frankenstein. My man upended the natural order of life and death, not with some silly magic, but with science! Sweet, sultry science. When I was a young worm, I wanted to do the same, and the doom story of the modern Prometheus filled me with inspirations of body snatching and DIY abominations. The story goes that a sailor in the Arctic expedition spots a person on a dog sled racing away, and later they recover another gentleman from the icy waters. This is Dr. Frankenstein, and he tells the sailor what brought him out there. He was in pursuit of a monster that he had created. Frankenstein said that he had a pretty sweet childhood upbringing. He had an affinity for natural psychology, which is a fancy old-timey way of saying biology, I think. And he was able to create life after about 2 years of study, which is rather impressive. But maybe he should have spent a little bit more time working on the face, and things may not have turned out the way they did. Because after he brings the monster to life, Dr. Frankenstein is appalled by the monster's appearance suddenly, and runs out of his lab because, ew, he's ugly. The monster escapes and learns about the world while being shunned for his jacked up looks which by today's standards, he'd probably be embraced by the tattoo and body modification community. He'd be like, whoa, dude, nice scarification. Those bolts coming out of your neck, those are some sick transdermal implants, bro. So the monster hides in seclusion and learns about the world, and also learns how to read by watching a family out in the woods. He finds a copy of Paradise Lost by Milton, and since he never knew his father's love, he's all like, you know, this Satan character is being spurned by his dad is something that I can really relate to. Uh-oh, the monster's getting woke. So anyway, after a series of murders, Dr. Frankenstein and the monster meet face to butt ugly face, and the monster is like, you need to build me a mate so I can have someone in my life, and we can run away together, and you will never see me again. And Dr. Frankenstein is like, fine, I'll make you a bride. Ugh. And so he's putting her together, and Frankenstein spots the monster peering in from the outside, and just a single look at the monster and his busted up face makes Doctor just wanna destroy the creation that he's working on, just out of spite. The monster howls and he takes off, vowing revenge, with that look that says, I vow revenge. Later, Dr. Frankenstein tries to get married, but on their honeymoon night, the doctor hears a scream and comes to find his wife Elizabeth dead. And the monster is leaving the scene of the crime. So the doctor is like, that's it, you suck, I'm gonna end this once and for all. And he tracks down the monster, whom, after a series of misunderstandings and subsequent murders, gets a dog sled and hauls his stitched-up booty to the ends of the earth with a Dr. Victor von Frankenstein in pursuit. Whereupon the good doctor falls into the icy waters, and he's later rescued by the sailor. And it snaps back to the present reality. Oop, there goes gravity. And Dr. Victor von Frankenstein says, hey, I'm about to die from hypothermia, no big deal, but you, Mr. Sailor Man, need to do these 2 things. 1, destroy the monster and put an end to all this. And 2, for the love of God, do not refer to it as Frankenstein. And the story ends in that weird way where the author is actively writing the story, like, oh no, the creature's coming into my bedroom. Oh no, it's right there. Oh no, it's killing me. Oh no, I'm dying. Oh no, I'm dead. It's kind of like that. But the sailor says that as he looked back at the corpse of Dr. Frankenstein, he saw the monster lamenting over the body of his creator. The monster calls himself a fallen angel, as a reference to Paradise Lost, and he contemplates his future career options before diving into the icy waters, presumably to end his own life. The end. Daddy issues, am I right? Number 3, Evil Ash, Army of Darkness. If you haven't seen Army of Darkness, you're not living your best life. This is my favorite movie, and it has the greatest skeleton war ever put to film. My name is Ash, and I am a slave. So to summarize, the main character Ash goes through some changes, and an evil version of himself grows from his body. it happens, which he kills and later buried. Later, Dash screwed up an incantation with the Necronomicon and accidentally awakened the titular Army of Darkness. Evil Ash is resurrected, and the two must do battle. Evil Ash commanding the skeleton army as it laid siege to the kingdom, keeping the Necronomicon. Evil Ash is great and all, but he's got a really terminal case of lasagna face, and also that helmet confuses me deeply. I can't help but wondering, is that like another skull on his helmet, or is it just a decoration on the metal? I mean, it's colored like a real skull, but there's no other skeleton that really looks like that, so is it like from an animal or something? Yes, Bob, I'm overthinking the skull thing. I always think about things that have skulls in movies. Like, remember in The Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King scene with the impossible amount of skulls pouring out of the walls, and everyone's all running across them like a slapstick routine? How does one acquire that many skulls? Because I'm jealous. I can't help but think, what happened to the rest of the skeleton's body? Like, is there another equally impressive chamber of just pelvic bones? Oh, which reminds me, number 2, Sauron. From the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, Sauron, also known as the Lord of the Rings, aka the guy the books were named after. He also had another name, the Necromancer. The Necromancer has come.
The Necromancer has come.
From Sauron's perspective, he's just a misunderstood jewelry collector who just is trying to reclaim his property. When I first saw the Lord of the Rings movies, I saw what a necromancer should truly aspire to be. I mean, he's got the glowing green castle, he's got the ring race under his command who are enslaved undead kings corrupted by his power, with the creepy eel dragons that goes cray. He's got millions of living creatures under his influence. He's even got a phylactery in the form of the One Ring, which is like a weird choice, and maybe he should have, locked up Mountain Doom a little tighter, but the ring makes you invisible, which is a super neat trick, and I personally would abuse that relentlessly. So maybe it's a good reason I don't have the ring. I don't think Sauron did anything wrong, you guys. And speaking of stories where the moral eludes me, this brings us to our last necromancer. Number 1, Jesus Christ. From the Bible. Maybe you've heard of Jesus. Otherwise known as the Son of God. It's kind of a big deal. He's totally a necromancer. And let's be fair, he's arguably the most famous necromancer of them all. Think about it. Jesus could bring back those who had died. He himself was crucified, he died, he resurrected himself, and he's rumored to return in the sequel. He was a miracle man. He could do anything, really. He could walk on water. Check. Make one fish. Many fish. Easy. Water to wine. Sure. Let's party. And sure, there's another example of his forbidden powers. I'm just not thinking of them right now. Honestly, it cracks me up when modern-day Christians shun the concept of magic when their Lord and Savior was essentially a walking miracle machine. I looked up how many times Jesus brought people back from the dead, and he certainly did a bit of the old necromancy here and there. So therefore, I award Jesus Christ the coveted number 1 necromancer award, but also disqualified Jesus Christ, because if you're going to be the Son of God, that basically makes you God. God's in-game RPG character. And that violates the no gods rule that we have previously established. Sorry. Thank you for playing. Don't smite me! Well, this was interesting. I'm sure you have your own favorite necromancer in mind, and I would love to read about yours down in the comments. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I am the Necrofessor, and the lessons will continue beyond the grave.
Hey, I'm a skull, and I've been brought back from the dead to tell you to click on all the buttons down there because they feel pain and it hurts them greatly and it pleases me. Also, if you want to support this horrific endeavor, consider going to the Plague Life Patreon and joining the Plague Squad. For exclusive Plague Doctor goodies you shall fetch nowhere else. Also, we got some new items dropped in the shop. So if you want, the links are down there in the chamber. Okay, bye.